Very exciting. We have Jessica Wallace joining us from Simon Fraser women's basketball team. Thanks for joining us, Jess.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Gladly. So we do like a little bit of an origin story. So where'd you grow up? When did you get started playing? Give us a little breakdown.
So I grew up in Vanderhoof, BC, which is a pretty small town in northern BC. It's about an hour north of Prince George. So that's where I grew up. And I started playing basketball there around probably 4th or 5th grade. And the only reason I actually started was because of my brothers. I'm one of 6. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. So my 2 older brothers were playing, and I remember they told me that I couldn't do it. And, tell me I can't do something, and I'm going to prove you wrong. So that's why I picked up a basketball in the first place, and I kind of just fell in love with it after that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you definitely had the dedication. I remember when I was coaching 3D basketball back in the day, you used to, you guys, I remember your Vanderhoof teams. You guys had some good squads playing in the high school championships and stuff, and you guys always kind of put it together a decent team. And then I remember in the summer, you used to live with Alex in her house, just playing basketball like for the entire summer. And talk about what it was like to actually make that decision. Like, listen, I want to take this seriously. I gotta play more. I gotta find somebody who's gonna let me live in their house, and I'm gonna literally hang out there the entire summer.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I think I was lucky because the coach that I had, Warren Cullum, at the time, he really loved basketball and put a lot of time into skill development and opened the gym. And I think in small communities, you don't always get that. So I was lucky to, fall in love with it more and want to get better. And I was hungry to get better. So I actually tried out for the provincial team. I think it was the U17 team at that time. And I was like the second last one cut. So I wanted to play that summer, and there's no opportunities in Vanderhoof. There's no club teams at the time. There wasn't club teams in Prince George. So my parents really, supported me and let me move down there. And I actually met Alex at the provincial tryout. So that's kind of how we hooked up, and she came to her parents and was like, hey, can this girl, I met this girl, can she come and live with us? And, Sue and Pete were awesome. And it was one of the best summer experiences that I had, getting to, play club and get better and put that time in.
Well, and also, you know what, you become more invested because you're actually making like legitimate sacrifices to do all that stuff. Like you kind of like, okay, this isn't a joke anymore. Like I gotta take this more seriously. I gotta put in the time. And then you went back for your senior. So you just came down for 1 year?
Yeah, it was just that 1 year. That was between my grade 11 and 12 year.
And then
I think that was when club teams started. I think I was on like the first 3D girls team, I believe. So it was kind of all new back then.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, people kind of take for granted club, what it was then, what it is now. Like it was really not a thing. And then just every year it kind of like doubles. Every year it's like there's 1 team out there.
Yeah.
Now there's 4 teams out there. Now it's 18. It's like just keeps going up, and the numbers have been crazy to see it grow so fast. Now, how was your grade 12 year? Tell us a little bit about that.
My grade 12 year was pretty good. I actually had a lot of injuries throughout my high school. I had bad knees, a little bad back problems as well. But my grade 12 year was pretty good because I think that year we finished 5th at provincials, which was the best that we've ever done. And being from a small town, that was pretty good. So it was a good experience. I didn't have a ton of recruiting offers coming out of high school. So I actually ended up going to UNBC, which was close to home, in Prince George. And it was a good experience for me because I actually went to a lot of their camps growing up. I did a lot of camps in the States. I traveled and did a lot of stuff in high school. But overall, it was a good experience.
And then you went somewhere else, correct?
Yes. So I went my freshman year right out of high school. I went to UNBC, and I actually ended up getting hurt in preseason. I tore my meniscus, and they actually ended up fixing it. So I was out for that whole year. I didn't play my first year. And then the second year at UNBC, I went back. I was having knee issues as well. And I went back to the doctor, and I actually had Osgood-Schlatters. I don't know if you know what that is, but it usually gets better when you stop growing. But in my second year at university, they did an x-ray and found out that I actually fractured So I was going in my second year and they're telling me I need another surgery, and being young and loving the sport, I was like, nope, I'm going to play. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that I did at a young age. It wasn't a great year. I obviously didn't play well. I didn't play a lot. And then the following year, I actually had to get surgery. So I took 2 years off of basketball and school completely. And then I moved down to Vancouver, and I actually worked as a personal trainer and got involved like coaching at 3D, and kind of rehabbing and figuring out what I want to do with my life, what's next. And then I decided that I wasn't quite done with basketball. Like, I wanted to see what I could do with what I had. And I put out some recruit film to a whole bunch of schools across the States. I really wanted to see what the highest level I could get to. And I actually got a couple responses, and one of the schools in Pennsylvania, which I didn't even know where that state was before then, offered me an opportunity to come out and try out. So I flew out there, I tried out, they offered me a little bit of money to come play. So I hopped on a plane and I went. So I went to IUP, which is a Division II school, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So that was it.
What was that experience like? So what a big difference. So, I mean, culturally, the difference between Vanderhoof to Vancouver to Pennsylvania, like we're talking like all over the place here. So what was that like? That's got to be a culture shock. That's got to be an experience shock. What was it? Give us a breakdown.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think I was lucky because I was a little bit older. So when I went, I was 21 now. I'm not as young. And I just remember the first year I was there, the preseason training was grueling. It was nothing that I have ever experienced before. And it was just tough. Like, the amount of people really, they expected a lot of you. And I'm not an athlete. I am, 120 pounds soaking wet. So it was tough for me to really adjust to that, but I really wanted to see how far I could push myself. And I'm really glad that I went, because at the end of the day, I didn't play a lot. I think over my 3 years there, I averaged like 4 minutes a game, which obviously is not a lot, but I took on some leadership roles when I was there. I really fell in love with the coaching piece while I was there. I met some great people, and, I got to work on some mental toughness, not really getting what you want all the time. So overall, it was a great experience, and definitely a culture shock, different level, but, it kind of drove me because it was nice to push yourself and see how far you could get.
Yeah, little town, big opportunity. So now you do that. What's it like? Let's go outside of basketball. So while you're there, you're in Pennsylvania. What part of Pennsylvania are you in?
So I was in about an hour from Pittsburgh, so it was more Western Pennsylvania.
Okay, so what's that like? Give us an experience breakdown. Like, do you go, on weekends every once in a while? Are you going on little trips? Are you doing some fun stuff? You kind of bunkered down at university. What was that like?
Well, one of the reasons I picked that school is because I was interested in doing athletic training. So I spent a lot of my time doing clinical work. So I got to travel to different small towns around Pittsburgh area and work with different high schools and stuff, doing athletic training things. So that was kind of neat. But, it's funny, in Pennsylvania, they have a lot of hills and they call them mountains. And I just laugh because they have no idea what a mountain is.
Yeah, no.
But it's a neat part of the city. I never thought I would really end up on the East Coast. But it was a kind of a neat opportunity to see a different part of the world.
Yeah, for sure. And then, kind of see what's out there. So then what'd you graduate with?
I graduated with a bachelor's in science and athletic training and a minor in sports administration.
Okay, fantastic. And then you end up coming back to Vancouver, right?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. So go ahead.
What brought you back here?
So after I finished my playing career, I actually was a graduate assistant coach at the same school for a year to finish my degree. And that kind of opened a lot of doors for me. And I think I was lucky enough to have the NCAA experience. And then knowing that I wanted to come home at some point, you need a visa, obviously, to be in the States. And I was finishing up, and I reached out to Bruce. And I remember I was texting him for about not texting, but emailing him back and forth for about a year saying, you know, if you ever have an opportunity, I'd love to chat. And it wasn't available. And I was just lucky enough that towards the end of my last year there, he was like, oh, it looks like I have a spot. Like, would you like to talk? And it kind of just worked out. So I was really lucky to be able to stay in basketball and still come home. There's not a ton of opportunities in Canada, obviously, to be at this level. So I feel pretty lucky about that.
So you ended up getting the assistant job at Simon. Give us a little breakdown of what that was like. What were your responsibilities when you got started? Give us a little rundown.
Yeah, so once I joined Bruce at SFU, I was pretty obviously new to the whole thing. And a lot of my responsibilities to start was just trying to like get our summer camps up and running and our, you know, June tournament and all the paperwork stuff that assistant coaches do. So that was really fun. And then once, you know, our season started, I did a lot of player development and kind of was just learning. I was still really young and new to it. So it was really nice to be working with Bruce because he kind of, you know, we got along really well and we hit it off. So I think I feel lucky that we get along so well because I get to learn from him so much. So yeah, it was fun. I learned a lot in the first couple of years, and now going into like my 5th year already, I just keep learning. So it's been a really fun experience.
So in the middle there, you went on a little detour and you went back to Pittsburgh. Tell us a little bit about that experience and kind of, you know, your love of the game kind of while you were away. Give us a little breakdown of that.
Yeah, so when I went back to Pittsburgh for a year, I was in school, and I was actually there because my boyfriend's still there. So I decided to go back, and I was in school and I was dabbling in some things that I was interested in, like graphic design actually. So I kind of have been all over the place. But I really wanted to stay involved in the game. And I actually got the opportunity to volunteer with the Pitt women's basketball team. So I got to, you know, sit in on their coaches' meetings and really help them with game film and, you know, be a part of the ACC experience, which was, you know, pretty rewarding. And being able to see that level of play and, you know, work with some pretty brilliant coaches, that was a pretty great experience. And then to be able to come back to SFU and bring some of the things that I learned there is pretty neat.
Yeah, the ACC is big time. That's a big deal. So then you come back the following year. Now I think you've got a little more responsibility. What are you doing a day-to-day at Simon now?
So right now with COVID, everything's a little bit different. I'd like to be in the office more than obviously we are right now. But I was actually Bruce let me do the defense a lot more when I came back. So I actually picked up a zone defense from Pitt that I thought was pretty neat. And he let me kind of implement that and take on a lot more responsibilities in the coaching side of it, both in game and in practice. So that's been really rewarding. And I've also kind of taken player development a little bit to another level. I feel like I've really enjoyed that process. So being able to work out with our girls and really, you know, lean into the little details in player development, I think has been an area that I've grown in, and Bruce has given me more responsibility. But, you know, all the paperwork stuff and the planning and the, you know, trips and scheduling is all the same. I just get to do a little bit more of the coaching stuff, which is, you know, the best part.
Obviously. So that's so cool. I mean, realistically, like you said, there's not very many opportunities in Canada to do it, and then you're doing it at the NCAA school that we have for the whole country. So that's always a very exciting thing. Now, what's been one of the let's talk a little bit about adversity. So obviously, your knee injury that took you out for a couple of years. What other types of things have you felt like you had to overcome to get to the place where you're at now?
I would probably say my expectations and like the dreams that I had didn't turn out how I wanted them. So not obviously when you go to university and you love a sport, like you want to play. And I think when I decided to go south, I kind of knew that I was putting myself in a situation that may not happen. So it didn't. So I think a lot of the adversity that I had to face on the day-to-day was, you know, realizing that when I decided to be a part of the team, it wasn't really about me anymore. So I think I really grew in the mental toughness and, you know, knowing what a good teammate is. I think it was pretty neat because in my senior year, even though I didn't play, I was like our team captain. So, I think that adversity was pretty tough for me, but I think I've grown a ton because of it. And I feel lucky looking back on this whole situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, those tough situations, they help make you the person you are, so it's always big. Now, on a day-to-day basis, you work out a lot of these players while they're in school. What are some of the things that you guys work on that you think is like a big deal that these kids need to get better at when they get to university? What's a big, you know what, I take it back. Here's the actual question. The actual question is, what do you think the biggest jump from high school to the university game that you think that you wish kids would take a little more seriously before they showed up on campus for that day one?
I would say like the level of play and the speed of the game is so different. And I think no matter how much you think you're preparing for it, I don't know if you really know what it's going to be like. So I think, athletes really need to invest in themselves, like in the weight room and their conditioning, because when you come in as a freshman, there's going to be so much that you're learning, both like trying to figure out how to organize and time manage your classes, and then what you're learning on the court. So if you have to worry about strength and conditioning, that's just going to make it so much tougher. So I think that's a really important thing coming in from high school into college.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back to your relationship with Bruce. Obviously, he's one of the more decorated coaches we have in the entire history of Canada for girls basketball. What's the one thing that you think is his greatest attribute that he brings to the team?
Bruce is a very honest guy. And I think that with all my experiences and all the coaches that I have worked with, I think that's one of his biggest strengths. I mean, some people might say it's also a weakness, but I think it's so important to know that the people around you are looking out for you and your best interest and being honest. And sometimes that's telling you the difficult things. So I think that is one thing that I've learned from him as a coach. And I definitely think it's one of the things that our players really appreciate about him as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to know where you're at.
Exactly.
If you could go back to your high school experience, obviously you had a very interesting one. You started up at Vanderhoof. You came down in the summers to get better, and then you went back there for your senior year. What advice would you give yourself to young Jess Wallace as she was growing up?
I think, that's a tough one. I think I would probably tell myself that it's okay if your plans don't go how you hope they would. I think, I'm a little bit of a type A personality, and, I like to, plan things out and prepare. And I think some of the biggest areas that I've grown and the life lessons that I've had were in moments that I did not prepare for. So I think that's probably one thing that I would tell myself, is that it's okay if things don't go how you want them to.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we've been doing all these interviews, and I've been getting some fantastic, we've been getting people that I never thought would say yes. And like somebody like Michelle Henry, who had a great career at Simon, and then, played on the national team, played pro for, 20 years. Just to see the path that she went through and how it was, it didn't go the way that she wanted it to go. And you just kind of got to roll with it, and you just got to figure it out. And to hear you say the exact same thing, we've heard that from multiple people. And so it really is how you deal with the adversity is kind of thrown your way. So that's kind of cool to see that. So this upcoming year, I think you guys have a very good team coming back. Tell us a little bit about your challenges getting kids ready for next season. Even though you got a couple good recruits coming in, and then you got a lot of people coming back that are very good. Give us a little bit of the challenge of getting that team ready for next year.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges right now, obviously with COVID, is just having the opportunity to be in a gym. I think is a challenge for some of our players, but they're doing what they can, and they're controlling, what they can control, which is nice to hear. I think some of our challenges are just going to be making sure that we know, you know, what we're trying to work on. We want to change a couple things on our defense next year. We have, you know, some athletes coming in, and we're really excited about that. So I think just getting everyone to buy into some of the changes that we want to make. And everyone seems like they're on board. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. And so how do you go about implementing some of that stuff now? Like, can you get any of that in now, or are you kind of just like wait and see? What type of, are you monitoring what the kids are working on? Have you given them some stuff for the off season to do? Like, what's that kind of been like?
So because we're in the NCAA, we're not allowed to tell athletes what they do in the off season. But we do have like end of year meetings, which we've had with all of our girls, and we kind of tell them, you know, what our goals are for the upcoming year, and, you know, go through things that need to be they need to work on, and they all kind of take ownership of that. So, you know, they check in and they talk to us, which is good. But we're hands off at this time of the year.
Yeah.
So
now, putting together a schedule, that's got to be an interesting thing for you guys. Being from Canada, having to play people that aren't, you know, in the country, obviously. What's it like dealing with the challenges of getting teams to come up to Canada and then figuring out where you actually want to take your team? Because I mean, you guys have a pretty cool schedule. You know, you're in California a lot. Kids get to see a lot of different parts of America if they come play for you guys. Give us a little breakdown of like some of the objectives you're trying to have while putting together a schedule.
Yeah, so when Bruce and I look at schedules, I mean, one of the things that Bruce really likes to do is find the best teams that we can play. You know, we want to challenge ourselves early, and it also helps us later in the season when looking at nationals as well. So when I look at booking schedules, I try to find the best teams in non-conference leagues, and, you know, try to make it work that we can play them just so we can get better. And then obviously we try to get teams to come up and play us. That's challenging at times because in the States there's so many schools and you don't have to travel very far to play a good team. So coming up to Canada sometimes is a little bit more, you know, it costs a lot more for some teams, so it doesn't always happen. But we try to balance out every year, whether we're going to California for all of our non-conference, or Utah or Vegas or wherever we're going. And then maybe the next year we have a few more teams that come up to us. So we just try to balance that out for academics for the girls as well.
Very cool. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today. It's been awesome to kind of hear your story and get that for everybody to kind of see and kind of give girls, you know, a template for it might not go the way you want, but it can still end up pretty good. And so it's cool to see you at Simon. As someone I've seen you grow up from when you were in high school, it's been cool to see the trajectory that you've been on, and I'm very excited for your future. Keep it going.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Bye.